Last year, a very notable video came out pertaining to Acheron, aptly named The Acheronification of Honkai Star, which I highly recommend you watch before or after this video as it gives some very helpful insight into the context of what I'm going over. Basically though, how she was responsible for HSR's breakneck pace of power progression was that rather than pushing the limits of what was possible, which is what power creep traditionally is, with the way she was implemented and the way she fundamentally went against about every single aspect of HSR's combat framework, Honkai Star Rail practically backed itself into a corner with Acheron. Even as we enter version 3, as stated, Acheron was miles out of her time that it forced everyone to be miles out of their time as well, which meant version 2 units were basically operating on the power level of what should have been version 3, so when version 3 eventually rolled around, they couldn't take their foot off the gas.
Oh, do you really think that I'm the demon? The demon of Empire City?
Hello guys, Rookie here. Now, Balsas made a video talking about Acheron on the she ended up being power creep the same very method that she created, and I actually disagree with these takes for several reasons. One, I do not believe fully that she was the sole reason at the very least, the way they made it is today in HSR, because guys, no matter how OP or strong Acheron can be, one character alone cannot rule the actual balance of a game. In case in point, Miyabi actually proves that the opposite, like if you use this as an example, Miyabi should actually destroy the Z as we know it. Like every character after Shemidi being much stronger than her, anything else that came beforehand, but instead actually the game is fairly balanced. Sure, this is a bit unfair in comparison, considering that this is a RPG while HSR is a turn-based one, so actually it's a bit more easy to balance the performer, because the player skills are actually way more involved in the first one. But in other cases, it proves that Acheron alone cannot actually don't damage many people actually think she actually did. No, something else actually caused HSR meta to spiral out of the way, like it actually ended up happening, like the HP inflation, the power creep. None of these things can be attributed solely to Acheron alone, and I'm tired of this narrative. That's why I'm making this video, to explain the real reason why HSR meta became so increasingly, how can I say it, alright, crazy. What you need to understand about Acheron is the fact that when she first came out in the first anniversary of the game, she was a low floor and high ceiling character. What do I mean by that? Sure, at best she was the strongest character by far, like so far above everyone else, so far above Jinglu, Danag Inhibitor Lune, and etc. But the thing is, only when she was at the best, which means having a signature, having at least one Eidolon. To be fair, back then alone the signature Lightcon would have been more than enough. Having Pera, which I'm so like, I couldn't fully utilize Acheron because I didn't have Pera back then. That was crazy. Like, I had to use her with Luca, so yeah. But without the specific time, the Lightcon, and the future even the Eidolons, yeah, she fell off. She could easily fall off rather quickly. And that's actually what happened in the future when we're approaching the 3.x version, because Acheron was getting nothing of a support, nothing. Only the fucking false guy, we better not talk about him because no Acheron main actually like him. So yeah, because of that, she fell off rather quickly, despite being the strongest card in the game. And the fact that people still assume that she was the sole reason the meta was destroyed, into she herself didn't lasting very long, that is kind of ludicrous, especially because there's another team that actually, in my personal opinion, has done way more damage than actually Acheron ever did in her life. That is obviously Super Break and Firefly. Oh my god, Firefly! Especially in combination with Ramei, that team was illegal back in 2.x, because Break had a similar Firefly Break had a similar output damage to Acheron, maybe it's not a lot, where at the target ceiling, but the floor was so much like bullying a Super Break team was so much easy to bully, especially if you had the Ramei, which I did not have because I actually lost the 50-50 so yeah, and because of that, you can actually break the game, fully break the game, because the damage you could do to break was insane. Not only that, but due to your main ability, to your main talent, you could delay the enemy's weakness break state, which means you could make them remain to the weakness broken state and even dish out more damage. Combined that with break-ins literally break enemies in like 5 seconds, and you have all the time the turns in the wall to destroy them without having to worry about them ever recovering. That alone has caused a lot of issues and a lot of game imbalances, because it didn't matter how much the Chester team actually increased HP. Players with Super Break will always find a new way to actually speed around and the game content, zero cycling everything with Super Break. There are a lot of compilations people back then, including game of Street 12 in Chuponets, with either freaking doing zero cycle or freaking follow stack cards, including one with this guy who created Guapen, yes, freaking Guapen Super Break in 2 turns. But on the side, Acheron Ichu as well was actually struggling. Look at so many rounds actually clear with this Acheron. Yes, freaking 5 rounds with Acheron perché while Guapen Super Break did in 2. I don't want to hear anymore since I'm not being broken so much to the try again, but she freaking lost the freaking Guapen. Freaking Guapen Super Brain, come on. Still find it ludicrous to this day that people still blame Acheron when Firefly Super Break does much way more damage to Acheron. Especially considering also that Super Breaking Firefly got a lot much support, like literally every character. With Firefly it loses literally every character as a breaker, like even quick in Serval è mierda. Yeah, you could do stem with Firefly, put that's it. And you could easily clear content. They also got an amazing postal healer in Galgear, which not only was amazing healer but also increased break effect, which means you do more break effect damage. And the funniest thing, the funniest shit of all that, is that they actually revived Imeiko before they actually just decided to do it with the Nova, with the spin Imeiko in Coconuts. Yeah, that is your broken the Super Break team was, that it actually had the funny side effect to actually revive Imeiko before the team actually decided to revamp her in a new format. The break was so broken, but so broken that non had to put a creepy detail to make the kit look like a freaking Dokkan one. That is so bad the game balance actually went out. And yet despite that, people still decide to blame Acheron for it, when in reality Super Break has catch much more damage. Now, it could be that people don't mention it simply because they either forgotten it, or more maliciously they try to push the narrative. I don't want to assume anything, because I don't believe Varsi is the guy that actually does that. He might simply have forgotten how broken Super Break was. To fair, the majority does probably forgotten, because after the Freponet's version, Super Break fell off, like, not quickly. Downright comical the way it fell off due to remembrance. So yeah, but even then, the fact that they still this narrative that Acheron is the sole culprit for the game's fallings, that is kinda ludicrous, and that has to stop, because like I said before, the idea has already proven that is completely false. One character cannot destroy the game alone. In Genshin, game that came out before HSR, we never had an issue like that, so... And that game also had pretty strong characters like Uta, Nuvolette, maybe not similar to Dragon, but you get the point. So, 3 all US games, only one that has quickly destroyed the balance in the game, that is HSR. Obviously, that also is due to HSR team incompetence, but it is what it is, so yeah. So for one more time, let's actually stop this narrative bullshit, because it is a narrative bullshit that Acheron simply destroyed the game around, so yeah. So if you agree with me, make sure to leave a like, share this video to a majority of just play you know it, and also spread the hashtag Acheron did nothing wrong, because we have to change this narrative as quickly as possible. And without other way, I'll end this video here. So goodbye and take care. Ciao!